Still on our month-long series where we are celebrating cancer heroes, we would like to switch gears a bit and do something totally different and, of course, very special. Remember, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month throughout the month of October, where we create awareness on early screening, early diagnosis, early treatment, and of course, better management of this disease that is quite a menace in the world over. As a matter of fact, breast cancer is the second most common form of cancer globally. You can imagine. Well, of course, this is Her Standards with me, Quinta Mbori, and as usual, I am very, very excited that you could take your time to join us for this show that is all about celebrating women, talking about issues that affect women globally. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm saying that. Yet on today's show, we have a Manel. I'll be able to tell you more about that. Remember, not all cancer heroes wear skirts. Actually, some come in pants, and we'll be able to tell you more about that in a short while. But first things first, we are very excited to be associated with Azuya Airport Hotel, who are our hosts for today's beautiful place. I always like to say, seeing is believing. You need to come here in order to come and experience it. My guests actually have called it Ushago, so it has that countryside feel, and you can only come and experience it yourself. Now, you know what to do if you want to be part and parcel of this show, especially if you are a man watching us from home today. Remember, this is the special episode of Her Standards. So should we call it His Standards? I don't know, but talk to us at KTN Home across all social media platforms, or you can talk to me directly at Quinta Mbori on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. If you're a man watching us from home, have you ever had any form of cancer screening? Tell us more about it. How was it? How was the experience? And would you do it again? Welcome to Her Standards, gentlemen. Karibuni sana.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while. Yeah, I know getting together this show and having you is just a story for another day. Maybe we can have it. We can have the discussion later on Nyama Choma or something. Yes. Now that we're in
After this.
Anyway, I'm so happy that you could be able to join us.
Yes.
And also for even agreeing to talk to us.
No, thank you.
All
for
right.
these important issues. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I have with me George, Martin, as well as Richard. I don't want to introduce them. They will introduce themselves. Please tell us who you are. I think we can just start from you, George.
Okay. I don't know in what context. I wear very many hats, but name is George Ikua. In this context, former caregiver to a cancer patient. I always celebrate what you do, Quinta.
Thank you.
Support you, try and support you where we can. And in life, I am a father, and a businessman, and from time to time people call me to speak, so I like talking.
Mm-hmm. How is the library?
Oh yes, I run a library. I run a children's library for a living. So I run a children's library for a living. Thank you for opening that. So it's very exciting. I think we're changing the idea that children can read. The way we read books, the way we read Tintin, the way we read all those little books when we were young. That's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I do for a living. Yes.
Karibu sana. Yeah, George Ikua is actually the spouse of the late Janet Ikua, and we'll be able to get into that story later on in the show. But thank you so much for your bravery and also for joining us.
Yes, I traveled far, so it's glad to be here. Very far.
I think we need a whole day to hear George's journey to
Azuya Airport.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting. Just keep it here. Probably we'll get to hear more about it on the show. Next, I'm going to ask my homeboy. Yeah, I call him Martin Pamdecker. Please tell us who you are. Please introduce yourself.
First and foremost is to just thank the Lord for this beautiful journey of life. We give him thanks for even today, for actually allowing us to just have this candid talk about cancer awareness. My name's Martin Onyango Alwala. I'm a businessman. a former caregiver. I was affected with cancer, now infected, and a survivor. I'm also a parent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Richard.
Wow, thank you. First, I want to say I'm excited to be here. This is my debut show at KTN. So I'm really
Where are the
excited.
drum rolls? We need to, in red carpet, some champagne. Yeah.
I'm a counseling psychologist. I work for my counseling center. I'm to help champion. I do a number of trainings in relation to mental health. And of course, I like talking about mental health. It's a good topic because personally I've lost friends through breast cancer, lost relatives. And so it is a good topic to discuss and to be able to shed more light on the same. I'm a neighbor here. I'm actually just a few kilometers from here, unlike my colleagues who are coming from this. So I'm happy to be, in a familiar environment. I feel very comfortable being around this familiar environment. And I'm looking forward for a great show.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward for a great show. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much
Richard.
for
Not to
this.
say that Richard was here many hours ago.
With excitement. Thank you.
Anyway, so today we want to talk about men and cancer generally. What are our attitudes towards cancer as men? And I think I'm feeling very honored to sit with men who are willing to be vulnerable and share the story. So we asked you a question at the start of the show, and we were wondering, have you ever had any form of cancer screening? And I think that is a good place to start. Yeah, maybe the last to speak, Richard. Yeah, is it something that you have had?
Yes, I've had one test, but when was that? I can't even remember. Any year ago.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was just passing through Kenyatta National Hospital. I think I'd gone to see someone, and I was crisscrossing those streets of Kenyatta. I happened to see a tent, where there was free cancer screening, and I popped in, very courageously. But as I sat there, so many things came to my mind. Do I want to do this? What if? What if anything? So at some point, I even, contemplated, walking away because I wasn't really sure. But I gathered strength and I said, okay, let me have this test done. Because then it's a routine check. I think it will be good for me to know what is expected. And thank God, the test came out very well. I've never gone back. I've been contemplating. People, I've always had speakers say, it's good to have this routine check. So sometimes I plan, just as about to go, I again, change the...
You develop cold feet.
Yeah. So I think that was five years ago.
Martin, tell us about you, about your screening.
No, just like they're saying, per se, it's not easy journey for a man to just wake up and go for any test, because one thing we believe as men is we are born fighters, you're born the head of family or something, and anything that would make you deteriorate your thinking in terms of being the head becomes a challenge for a man. So we really, and I'd say even I had never went for the testing. Mine was, I think, forced after I've told you need to check this because maybe this is it's happening to you. I will just tell you, Richard and George, I will walk with you and we'll go and be tested and I will give you moral support.
Just set the tone for this conversation. The story of George and Janet is not new, and anybody who wants to hear about it, the information is all out there, but then we cannot assume. Maybe you can just give us a brief, I don't know if it's a subject you're comfortable talking about, that journey that you walked with Janet, and possibly some of the lessons that you picked from it, before we get to Martin, who has been hit not just once but twice, and he's standing strong.
He's my hero.
I know.
Yeah,
then we can get to hear his story.
Janet's story is very out there, I think. But for this, what I really would like today to pass on is being a caregiver husband. I think for me, that is what I would like to share.
Yeah.
So, first learning about it, we ended up going to India because she kept on clotting her legs. Her blood, the clots, she had one, a pulmonary embolism, which is clotting the lungs, clotting the heart, clotting the thighs, clotting the feet.
How did she know that?
So the feet ones first were swelling. So it's very painful, and so you can't walk. We were fighting clots, and at one point it ended up in her heart, which is how you die when clots, either in the heart or the lungs. Because in the heart pumps the lungs, you suffocate because it blocks the blood
flow
from getting the. It's a scab. I'm telling you, it's a scab. So we ended up in India to test what the clots were. And they come, they say, oh, do number of tests. And we're doing a test, and the next day we're going to the Taj Mahal. And so we're doing the test, and we're going to come back to the Taj Mahal, a short holiday. We immediately come back and find the results on our way home on what medicine to go continue taking for the clots. So before we leave in the morning, they tell us, no, I have some news. Janet disappears into the bathroom and tells me, hey, madawa mangapi tunanunua. You, of course, being a man, you are calculating. Then this guy is here early in the morning, in the pesa sawa. He's come for money. And he says, no, it's stage 4 cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it gives us, a very short time. I know something like 2 months, 3 months, I don't forget the period. And he takes off, and Janet comes back out. Like, who was that? I told the doctor. What madawa's craziness are they saying for this clotting blood? Like, no. And you start to tell her. And why I'm telling this part of the story is that it could happen to anyone. Actually, now in my research is that I found that most of us always have cancer, but the body fights your cancer. So you need to get that. It's not like something you've done. People talk about new chawi. Of course, they have not yet been able to draw the hereditary, but if you have somebody in your line who've always had it, it's good to go get checked.
Become a high risk. It's a risk factor.
It's a risk factor. So going forward, we started the journey. That's a very well documented journey. But I'll tell you from a caregiver point, the first thing your partner does is see death. Then, it sounds like a death sentence. And even they were telling us, 2 months tops. I didn't tell her, but they told us, 2, 1, tops. You're done. And they tell you so clinically, and then they walk away. Because, big hospital, thousands of people can't spend the time they are hugging you. But one of the things that I tell my fellow men who, if you ever get to go through this, or you've ever gone through this, you need to understand the emotional aspect to your partner, because immediately, first, she broke down. 2, her father had died of cancer, lung cancer. She'd been diagnosed with lung cancer. So she had seen somebody with lung cancer die. So it's not about you. So it's not the time to be saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. Truthfully, it's not okay. So what I would at this point, some of the things that I really picked at this point is, because when I first were in a foreign country, the only person she could unleash on, and one of the things is me. So the bitterness is with me. And it's not you she's bitter with. And that's why you find most men, when their spouses get sick, the first thing to do is run away.
They take off.
But you must, it's almost like if your child, and the funny thing is this, if your child got sick, men don't take off. This is that thing. So your child is allowed to insult you and say...
George, you want us to start that debate?
No. But it's very weird.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
you've put your spouse in a space where she cannot go crazy on you. I mean, the idea that you're dying and you're being told clearly you're dying is, how would you deal right now? So we never put ourselves in their shoes. And for me, that was one of the lessons that I had to learn. Matusi si matusi.
Don't take it
Si wewe
personal.
anakutukana. She's insulting the situation,
disease.
but it's only you who's there, right? And we progressed and went through the journey. And she had started the treatment. I came back with the help of all the Kenyans. We raised money, went back, treated, came home, and spent another year together. But in this journey, I'll tell you, like, that Matusi thing, this is where you find people really running away from. So it's not you she's angry at, she's lashing out. 2, you are the cheerleader. This is the mother of your kids, right? And one thing people don't realize, having gone through it and become a widower, and that's why I met Martin, when a widowers group together. Let me tell you, if there's anything you can do to save the mother of your children, leave the wife beat. Kama mko na stress, achana na hiyo. It is the biggest gift you'll ever give your children. And even better, if she ends up going and you gave your best, your children will go. You don't want the guilt, even from a selfish space, if your children ever look at you and think that you didn't do enough. Because mine is documented and I'm at peace with my children. Leave the rest of the community. The rest of the community can have their opinion that you didn't do. Everyone will always have an opinion. I would really encourage people who are caregivers. It's the biggest gift. Taking care of their mom is the biggest gift you can ever give your children. Fighting for her. And it doesn't mean because you fought for her. Because I remember when we did enter the first time when she was cleared and we came back. It is not that now she walks, she enters the house and kneels at my feet. No. Now, immediately, women have a way of resetting straight to womanhood. Tule tumatusi alikuwa nazo tu. Tunarudi tu. They are not told, oh, you remember you saved me.
You saved my life.
No. Pale. Umeacha suruali kwa floor.
It did not happen.
No. So, but with pride, now with pride that this is something you did. And the funny thing is this being quarreled about socks on the floor. If she ever passes, and Martin will attest to this, that is what you will miss. You don't miss the sweet days. You will miss somebody to argue with you about socks or a dirty plate. True, Martin?
Completely.
This is what you will miss. People think, that fear of coming home late. You will miss, you enter a house, man is asking you, become a warehouse.
At times you
want that
you purposely come by yourself by 5.
You open the door slowly. Kufungua mlango pole pole. You have already made a story where you are from. You're wondering whether it's believable. That's the thing you miss, So
before you leave your car, you
have really thought.
If at all I say I was with you.
All the possible dynamics which she'll ask. So I'm saying you're not doing this caregiving ili sasa akuwe na kuworship. No. Man-woman dynamics zitakuwa huko for hata Adam na Eve. Adam alikuwa anachapwa. Maisha tu. So I mean those are very big lessons. Don't think now you're a saint. Yeah. Now you have to be worshipped.
Yes.
And then I think at the second stab, my third and very huge lesson was that this thing could go south. And if it goes south, before it goes south, there's usually a breakdown of the body. And this is where that for better or for worse thing
comes through.
You have never seen when somebody can't control their stool.
I think you wrote that somewhere on Facebook. And you said, look, you need to, when you're still alive, and look at your spouse and figure out whether you can...
You can wipe them.
Yes.
On a poo-poo, you wipe. Not to lie. If you can't, that's not your spouse. I'm not lying to you. You have to do it. And if you can't do it, you are never a partner. And for me, when we went through that journey at the second stab, and we were going through this, and we were going through So now the emotions go back. Matusi, depression. So it's not Matusi. At least Matusi is aggression. Depression is worse when you have kids and you are just money and something. Like you have to understand that that is the time you're truly tested whether you are married. So for those who are listening, who are not married, please remember every husband is a potential widow. Every wife is a potential widow. There's people think death is one day lights out. No.
It can
Most
happen.
deaths,
It's a process.
Most deaths, other than car accidents. And so you must understand that you are marrying this person and you walk that path and have the conversation
With them. Well, we are just getting started with the story of George and Janet Ikua, which is actually available on all over the internet, on social media. You can get to read about it. We are doing the series on cancer champions, and today our focus is on men and cancer. We want to take a short break because we still have quite a lot to talk about. We have Martin, who has been hit twice by cancer and is still standing, and we get to hear his story in the second part of this conversation, as well as Richard, who is the expert here, is going to tell us why men don't cry and possibly why they need to cry more. Now, talk to us at KTN Home across all social media platforms, or you can talk to me directly at Quintenbury on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. Now, to the men at home who are watching the show, even to the women, brothers, sisters, cousins, please ask the man sitting next to you if they have had cancer screening, any form of cancer screening, and if they haven't, maybe we need to encourage them to do so. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Her Standards with me, Quintenbury. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us for the second part of this episode of the show that is all about celebrating women. Apart from today, we actually have switched a bit and we have a manel, men who are courageous enough to talk about their cancer experiences, either as those who are affected or infected. And of course, they're also going to share with us their survival story. We are available at KTN Home across all social media platforms. Also, you can talk to me at Quintenbury. We are coming to you from Azure Airport Hotel, a beautiful place. If you only need to come and experience it. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us again. George, and thank you for sharing your story with Janet and how the diagnosis, the lessons you learned from that whole experience. There's something you mentioned about men, choosing to take off at the slightest information on a cancer diagnosis. Now, Martin here decided to hang around. Maybe you should tell us why you decided to hang around, and why do you think men often take off?
Why I decided to hang around, my story is also slightly different, but more or less the same as George.
Yeah.
Because if I may recap or recall when my late wife first told me that she had a tumor, she's feeling something on her breast, and we were all raw. We didn't know anything about cancer. We would never consider about it. That was a year before she was diagnosed rightly with cancer. So we went to the hospital.
1 year later is when you got the diagnosis.
Yeah, so we went to the hospital, and the same you're saying, doctors who at times who don't know what they're treating, or maybe they know what they're treating, did samples, took some things on her breast, and it was taken to Camry. Apparently when we started the journey, we were slightly enlightened, because I was following your journey during your Arambea. We were there with my wife, and we were the group who came to just support with you, the guys from events management team. And by that time, she had also known that she has cancer. It was that alone. But 1 year before, the chemical report came and said they're just, how do you call, fluids in the breast.
Yeah.
So it's nothing to worry about. And she was given drugs. Apparently it demised. Now, a year later, she kept just complaining that, hey, babe, I'm feeling something. The same spot. I said, what? See, I thought we did, and we went to Camry, which was a better off facility in terms of such. Yeah. I said, no. So one day she just went alone, and she went, and her friend told her to go and see an oncologist and whatever. And she was given an appointment. So we went together, and I remember it was somewhere in the Lancet, in Parklands. There was a doctor who we were introduced to, who was sharing the office with Lancet. I think he wasn't a Kenyan. He was either Rwandan or Burundian, speaking more French. And we thank God that we started on a good foot. And this guy did examination and did all the things of removing the spars and the saddest part when I also felt like, wow, we are hit, and both of us broke down. When he said, are you really willing to sit here and see me do what I do? And I said, why not? That's why I'm here. If she's undergoing through this, why should I go sit at the waiting? The reason why I'm here is to give her that moral support. Yeah. And the same day, at around 4, the news was broken to us. It was me, the doctor, and her. And we told Madam, number one, we thank God it's not badly off. We're like, okay, you think maybe it's just symptoms, maybe there's no stage. Yeah. And I was quick to ask her, then, I hear you cluster this thing in stages. Yeah. What stage is it? He said it's stage 2, but we've noticed because of a fatty body, this thing is growing fast. It has areas of swim within the body that makes it grow fast. So if it's not handled, we will not say that it cannot go to stage 3 or 4 within a span of like 6 months or so. So like, okay. So she asked, what do you do? I told her, listen, just keep quiet and internalize. So I kept doing the talking, trying to ask questions here and there, what should be done. So we were directed and told we will need first to begin with the chemotherapy. There was an option of radio and chemo. Those are 2 options. You can start with radio or chemo. But apparently this guy felt it was right to start with chemo. But he told us also, don't rush into chemo. Just sit back, go talk about it, give yourself 2 months. Help her understand and accept that this is not a death sentence. Okay. But I think my wife Sheila, at that very moment, she never accepted. Okay. And it took us a week to inform our parents of what happened. And all our parents came to Nairobi. Luckily, within those months, most dad and mom was there. My dad and mom were around. So one of the doctors, who was a cousin, Dr. Collins, the mother realized he works in Kenyatta. Because the other doctor wanted to take us to Aga Khan, and we looked at the logistic of finances and stuff. Yeah. It was going to be hectic. So when we got a Luwe in Kenyatta, it was better. And I remember that was late October 2015. So we went and met this guy. And looking at the calendar for treatment in Kenyatta, we were told that it will take us, she'll be on the line on February. I get.
That's like how many months later?
But luckily Collins was able to rush things and we were given an appointment within a month. Okay. And to me, at times, I think that is where we went wrong also with our health, because a month, you just 2 months you've been told you have this, you don't have that growth period to try and work within yourself. We accepted, and she went and did the first chemo. But I think what was eating her inside that until to date I don't know was she had lost hope. I think from point that she was
The
told
moment
that
of diagnosis,
this is what you have.
yeah, she just gave
At
up
some
hope.
point in her life, I think she didn't have 100% hope. You know, there was a miss-up in terms of hope in her life. So we went and she did that. I remember that day I was doing event for Standard. It was on a Wednesday, and I was called when we were setting up for some exhibition. And my mother calls me and tells me, "Hey, where are you? We need you at home." I say, "I'm all the way in Standard Group. That traffic, Mombasa Road, before I reach Kenyatta, it's crazy. Do you know, your wife needs to be taken to ASP on a Wednesday. The chemo was done on a Monday." I said, "Fine, I'm coming." So something came into my mind, and I'd say, at times God speaks or does his works in miraculous ways. Say, "Call your neighbor, Brian, maybe he's at home." Pick my phone and I told Brian, "Where are you?" "I'm just entering this." And I said, "Oh my God, fine. Rush to my house. Do what you can. Where I am, I don't know." So we meet at St. Mary. That was the nearest hospital. That chemo had really just messed everything, I'm sorry to say. Because this was a very strong woman before chemo. And 2 days, she's no longer herself. You'd say, yes, she's, you know, when you're heavy, like George, you're still the same. But the mechanism within your system was just failing and failing and failing. She was put in, and so my work in terms of caregiving was not so longitated. It was around 3-4 months. And it was the 3-4 months in my life that were most difficult. But from Monday the chemo and Sunday when she passed, it was like 40 years in the desert. You know, the Israelites took 40 years. So my 40 years were crumbled only for 6 days.
6 days.
6 days.
Richard, you listened to the two gentlemen and their stories. What does it tell us about men and just dealing, first of all, receiving news, hard-hitting news, walking through that journey, in fact, even grieving. Yeah, what does it tell us about men?
Wow. First, I want to say that this is deep. You know, hearing George and Martin, this is a deep story, very, very deep story. I mean, I think from where I sit as a mental health practitioner, it just confirms that men are human beings. It does. That we are human beings, because look at, you know, what George went through. Look at what Martin went through with the wife. As you know, looking at your spouse, this is somebody you first met, knowing very well, they're very energetic, they're lively, they're bubbly, and it gets to a point, a season in your life that you now see these people deteriorate. You know, it's just a reminder that we are human beings. And what does it mean to be human beings as men? It means that we have emotions. It means that both George and Mike, you know, went through the presses of emotions. You know, sad as it may, you know, because then if I was in a session, my brother would have asked, "How was that for you? You know, how was that for you seeing, you know, your friend, you know, your spouse, you know, going through that?" But one of the things for sure that our viewers, you know, need to know, as men, is that when we go through this very painful experience, it is okay to talk about our story. It is okay to get to a point of vulnerability and just let loose and let go that I am a human being who's going through a very difficult period. You heard what George said, that it was a period of abuses. But I also liked what you also said, George, that it was not me being abused, but she was abusing the situation.
But how many people can realize that?
I think that is very powerful, George. You know, because one of the ways that people react to, you know, such news is anger. In fact, the very first normal response to such news, because cancer is a terminal illness.
Yes, it is.
And of course, terminal illness presents loss to some degree in our life. You can imagine they were even starting to readjust their lifestyle. You know, now it's me who's going to be at home and now not my wife. You know, that is a loss because then it robs you from that routine that you used to enjoy, that after work I'll meet Richard, I'll meet George, I'll meet so and so, and have a drink or so, or just chat or coffee or whatever. So that in itself is a loss. Now, how do you react? How do human beings react normally? First, it's shock and denial. You know, shock and denial. Is this going to be my life? So first you're in shock. You know, when George was telling us about the doctor telling him about, you know, your wife is in stage 4 and this, I mean, perhaps she's going to just be there for the next 30, 60 days. I mean, at that moment, George, at that moment, you know, at that moment, you know, first, you know, the normal way is shock. Because for him and the late wife, they were expecting to be given more drugs to deal with the clot.
Yeah.
But here comes the doctor who tells you, man, it's not just the clot.
Yeah,
It is the real thing.
Yeah.
You know, it is the real thing. It's the cancer. I mean, what if, you know, after 1 year of, you know, the tumor and removal, the, you know, optimism that is not going to be cancer, then later on within some time they're told, man, this is the thing. You just heard him say, I put hazards and I was driving like a madman to, you know, that is shock. You know, at some point maybe even sinking to denial. Okay? Then the next stage is normally anger. You know, the shouting that they're talking about, the abuses, the, you know, because then you are even angry to God. I don't know, maybe they would have shared, even at some point, I'm sure maybe their spouses were asking, God, why me? Why not the other person? Why me? And I'm sure even them, they were asking, God, why my spouse? Why not my neighbor? You know? And it's normal, you know? So you get angry. Then you look at your children, for those that have children, and you're wondering, so what is going to happen with my children? You know, sometimes even you displace that anger to these children. You scream at them. You know, and even the children will wonder, what is happening? Now, the difficult stage in all this, you know, issue is the bargaining stage. You know? Now, at that bargaining stage, they will tell us that, you know, they were trying to look at what are our possibilities, what are our options, what if they die. George told us, I mean, as long as she's here today, that's fine. So as I dance with her, she proposes, let's go to America, that's fine. But you see, at the bargaining stage, you're asking yourself, but what if? What are my options? You know, what's going to happen to me and my children? You know, now, if people don't bargain successfully at that particular stage, and I'm glad that you are here to share this story because then you navigated that stage successfully. You find yourself mostly sinking into depression because then you see no light. Martin has told us about the wife who lost hope. So she may not have bargained successfully to see hope beyond the diagnosis. So then you sink into depression, and that is again a very difficult place to be. One, because then mentally you're not functioning to actually battle this demon called cancer. And of course, terminal illness like cancer will require that you have very strong mental capacity to be able to deal with it, to fight with it. People who live long with cancer and battle and survive cancer, they will tell you they actually developed a very strong mental ability. But it's always our joy and hope as psychologists to see these people, either the caregivers or even the patients, get into acceptance. Because it's in acceptance that you get, you know, healing. You know, my brothers, you have gone through a very difficult, you know, period. But even as I hear you talk, you know, I am encouraged as a man to know that, you know, having passed through that, you have gotten to a point of acceptance. That indeed it was a difficult journey, but difficult as it were, I think you're able to even talk about it freely. So in a nutshell, I mean, those are stages that, you know, people will go through when they are first, either as a caregiver or as a patient, because then, like I've said, it brings with it some loss. But most importantly, I want to encourage our viewers that as men, and I like what one of say that we are all potential, widowers, and those, widows. So it's good to appreciate and be, aware of our emotions and just allow ourselves to go through the paces, because it's in those paces of the emotional turbulence that you get healing, that you get strength to even support. You can imagine if these people broke down, so you have two patients in the house, one emotionally disturbed, the other one, of course, medically disturbed. I mean, it can be very, 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 very difficult. Now, you can even imagine what will happen to the children.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage men. It's difficult, but one of the things to really, even be a good support system to whoever you're taking care of, and of course even to the patient, is that allow yourself to go through the emotional process and be able to talk about it. I like what Martin said, and I think I've always encouraged my fellow men, if you need to cry, it is okay to cry. Because after crying, I know the socialization aspect. When you see a man crying, it looks very strange and very, not very nice. Lock yourself in the room, cry, and after that, come out, you feel better. Because I know, you can imagine a man crying before the children. Sometimes it can also affect the children. But just get somewhere, take a walk, and let's just go release your pain, and cry if you need to, talk if you need to. Sometimes even people go out and find space to scream if they need to scream. And really feel better.
Yeah, I hope that our men, or those who are teaching our young men, we can also just tell them that it's okay to cry. I think that's a really good point. We don't have a long time, so I'm going to give my guests at least 1 minute each to say something as we wind up. George, one thing about you and Janet is that you were the primary caregiver, but you also had children at that time. Maybe you can also tell us how you navigated the gender roles as we wind up before I come to Martin.
All right. Yeah. That's very critical, especially children during the sickness, children post the sickness. I'll talk about during the sickness. So what we did was that you can't protect your children from the truth. You'll find a way to tell them the truth. So all through, we kept talking and kept updating, and what they watch in you is how you're reacting. So you can't come and say, oh my God, she has cancer. You have to come say, Mom has some sickness, it's called cancer, it's treated like this, it's a calm in your voice. You have to get the children on your team. Yes, I remember my son was heavily affected towards the last year, and then when she got over. But now, it's so many years later, he's able to deal with it. It's something that he took time to internalize and really understood what cancer is. So I think for children, is be 100% honest. You're not doing them any favors, hiding them from the truth.
True story. Martin,
Yeah.
how did you recover from the loss? And now that you're also a survivor of cancer, maybe you can also tell us that.
It wasn't easy, just like George would say, but you see, mine, we didn't have longer time to walk through with the children when she was sick. Because even when we realized that she had cancer, she was still 100%, so we didn't break the bin. But now, after we did the chemo, is when we started. But it also gave us very short time to actually even try and sit with them and tell them, Mommy is going through this. But my firstborn would sense, because he was in high school by then. So it was difficult. Truth be told, nearly an year to accept. And my periodical of life changed. And I found myself into alcoholism. I will not lie. Any moment I would picture that scenario, the only consolation was, where is my whiskey? Yes, I was born again, but in life at times it figures a point where you look at what is the immediate remedy to solve this. I nearly became alcoholic because every day I was drinking Monday to Monday. And I thank God that within that sphere, the church, Sitram Karen, had really applauded them. They were so close. And the group we formed, so we found ourselves in a group of nearly 24 men. So all at night, it was chatting, talking, somebody has passed, we're adding the group. And luckily enough that in our group we're still all alive.
That's really
Yes,
nice.
we're still all alive. There was also a pastor in the group who really, I'd say, through God's manifestation. So me, I'd say, after that, I found myself embraced with friends. And I came to realize that there are true friends out there. Apart from parents, you know, your parents were there, both parents, and also my church, I would also say the pastors kept on us. And I didn't even know how I'll explain to my young boy, who was, I think, in class 2 by then when she passed on. I was in class 8. I didn't even know what to tell Jabez, because I myself, I was a garbage, you know. But they took upon themselves, and every Sunday from senior pastors, they would meet him in church. At times I look for him, I don't know where he is. They used to lock him in rooms, and I thank God that they saw this boy needed the support and to be told the truth. And they were looking at me, and yes, the father may not be able to say it as it is, but in a good way. And that really helped that young man. It really helped that young man. And yeah, case again, years back, I think 2019, beginning, my story started again. I was like, God. So mine was also different, because the type of cancer I was going through, I didn't know, and I couldn't eat, even drinking water. It really didn't cross my mind. Truth be told, I never thought of. So towards the end, when this thing is getting crazy, is when I went to Kenyatta, I was introduced to, because mine started coming out of my skin. And I noticed some black tumors around my nose and my wherever, and my hand. One is still here. So when I went to see him, I've forgotten the doctor's name, who was a dermatologist. Yeah. And he just looked at me and checked me, took some things, put on my throat. He told me, boss, bad news. I was like, okay, what bad news? Yeah. What is the problem with my throat? He said, yes, your condition can also elope to your face. Because see, I'd already started losing my eye, you know. And tumors of darkness were, you know, all over my face, you know. You'd see them, it was black. I thank God I'm now back to me. And okay, what's the problem? He told me, I don't want to preempt, but this looks like cancerous. I remarried at some point. I remember calling my wife, Jackie. I said, hey, you know what? Bad news. Like, what, Martin? She just said. And they just told me I have cancer. And that's, I think, the easiest way I could say it. I was in the car for 1 hour. People were calling me, I'm not picking calls. Just in my own world, completely. I was out. There's no one to talk to. I went alone, and you know. And then it dawned on me, the verse that I kept saying, Jeremiah 29:11. So it paraphrased itself in my mind, and I think I recited it, and I said a short prayer. And I felt some energy, and I went to the car and drove.
How many years has it been since the diagnosis?
It was 2019, and this is 2021. But it took me 4 months to accept that I had cancer.
Thank you so much, Martin. Yeah. Thank you, George. Thank you, George, for sharing your story. And of course, Richard, thank you for giving us a professional input. As we wind up, maybe just one word each, and then we can just close and finish. Richard.
I think I'll not say much, but just to pick up from where Martin was saying, acceptance. Acceptance is the mother of all healing. So even mentally, it begins with you accepting that I'm having a challenge, because then when you accept, it helps you to develop a new perspective about the situation. So acceptance is a powerful word.
Acceptance. Those were many words I said, but it's okay. You're talking about cancer. George.
One word.
Yeah.
Have faith, be kind. I don't know. Have faith, be kind.
Have faith, be kind.
Yeah.
And I think Martin already said his 3 words.
Yes.
He said acceptance, willpower to empower the body, and then have a little faith. Just have faith and we'll be able to deal with this cancer menace. Well, this has been Standards with me, Queen Tambori. Remember, this is our month-long series on cancer champions. Today, we were privileged to be in the company of cancer champions who are not in skirts or dresses, but they're actually wearing pants, and we're just grateful that they're able to share with us their stories of survival, of going through pain, and even overcoming it. Now, we asked you if you have had a screen as a man. I hope that you're able to drop your response in the comment section. We are available at KTN Home across all social media platforms, or you can also engage me at Queen Tambori on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. Well, everything that has a beginning must have an end. I'll leave you with the famous quote which says, remember, even through it all, as we fight this cancer, to keep your standards high, go for that screening. Make sure that whatever symptom that you're experiencing that is nothing that is unusual, that you're able to get proper help for it. Till next time, keep your head, keep your standards, and heels high. Bye for now.